Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're an event venue owner or thinking of opening a venue, today's interview is a must watch. One of the biggest concerns venue owners have is insurance, what coverage you need, what to require from your clients and vendors, and how to protect your business from costly claims. That's why I'm excited to welcome today Myles Anderson, a leading expert from the Event Helper. Myles, could you start by sharing a bit about your background with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've known the owners of the company here for about the last 10 or 12 years or so. Me personally, I was looking for a change in my professional life, and so I reached out to them for a job, and basically they hired me about 4 years ago now to work directly with venue owners to help educate, help simplify the process for them and for their clients buying event insurance, and just kind of take more of a venue focused approach rather than end user wedding couple marketing kind of approach. So that's kind of my role here, is just to work with venues, make sure they know as much as they possibly can.
So, grab a notebook and get ready for some for some valuable insights that could save you time, money, and stress. So, Myles, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to start with asking you some general insurance questions. So, my first question is, what are the essential types of insurance that every event owner should have and why?
Yeah, so I mean, as a venue owner yourself, you're going to want to make sure that you have insurance to protect yourself. That'll be general liability insurance, possibly auto insurance, workers' comp insurance, different things like that to make sure that you're thoroughly protecting yourself and your investment in the property. Where we step in, what we provide is the event insurance, which we insure the either the bride and the groom or the person renting your facility or vendors that are operating at the event. So if those people are responsible for an injury or injury to a guest or property damage to your venue during the event, that they have protection, they're not paying out of pocket. And in the case of an injury to a guest, if they don't have the assets to cover that personally without insurance, to protect you as the venue so that people don't actually come after you. So we're kind of your safeguard to protect your insurance and your assets as a first line of defense.
Okay. So are you just like a backup insurance for venue owners? So you gear more to the client or the venue?
Uh, Both. So we protect the client because the client's signing the rental contract with the venue, so they're responsible for that space during their rental period. So if there is property damage or an injury that they're responsible for, it's ultimately their responsibility. For the venues, again, we're like a first line of defense, so you're not the only one as a venue owner out there with an insurance policy for an injured party to possibly pursue.
Okay, sounds good. So what are the biggest misconceptions new venues owners have about insurance coverage?
Yeah, well, regarding our event insurance policies, they'll have the client buy the event insurance, let's call it the wedding couple in this case. And a big misunderstanding is that that policy is going to cover anything that happens during the event. I mean, regardless of who was at fault or anything like that. So the most important thing with our policies is to know that it is covering the actions of that person. So the wedding couple sets up decorations and somebody trips on it, that policy is there to cover it. Also covers the responsibility of their guests at the event. So if a guest scrapes up some floors or breaks a table or something like that, they were responsible for that space. They brought that risk in there. Person caused damage. That policy covers it. The venue, however, is still ultimately responsible for their negligence and their actions. So if they have a rotted out floorboard on a deck and somebody's walking out on a porch or a deck and they step through it and they go through that rotted plank and injure themselves, well, that wasn't the fault of either the event host. There was no reasonable expectation of them to maintain the deck in a 24-hour rental period. And it wasn't the fault of a vendor because same case there. Ultimately, that was the venue's responsibility. So they would still be the ones that were on the hook with their insurance, their liability insurance for that injury to a guest. So yeah, biggest misconception is that the event host policy covers everything. The venue's off the hook. They have no liability. They're good because their client has an event insurance policy.
Exactly. So, how often should a venue owner review and update their insurance policies?
Yeah, a lot of venues will do that typically on an annual basis. They'll consult the agent who handles their business owner's policy that they have in place and be like, hey, this is what we're currently getting from the event helper or whatever company that they're using. Show them our certificate of insurance and be like, is this still sufficient for our property? If there's damage, to basically cover and make sure that we're protected. Also, a lot of times if you did like maybe a big renovation or something like that, you might want to look at the property damage coverage limits on our policies because maybe your property is worth more now, so you need to have a higher limit of coverage on that policy.
Okay. As far as policies and coverage, many venue owners require clients and vendors to have their own insurance. What should venue owners look for in the certificate of insurance, commonly known as the COI?
Yeah, so on there, one very important thing is looking for the dates of coverage on the policy. So going back to a wedding example again, sometimes the wedding will have the rehearsal the day before, the ceremony on the next day, and then the following day, maybe they have a brunch on site or something like that. You want to make sure that all of those dates are listed on the insurance policy on the certificate. With us, there's no charge to list all three of those dates, but if they are doing a rehearsal and it's the day before and they only have the ceremony date listed and somebody gets hurt, there could potentially not be coverage there because it wasn't listed on the policy. A couple other things that you look for on there are the coverage limits, which I'd be happy to dive into a little bit more in depth and actually look at a certificate with some of the people listening. But just making sure those coverage limits meet your requirements and understanding what you're looking at and how that lines up with your actual contractual requirement that you have.
Okay. So, how can venue owners determine the right coverage limits for their policies? Are there any industry standards they should follow?
Yeah, so our minimum coverage is going to be $1 million for any single claim of injury or property damage. That also comes with a $2 million limit for the sum of multiple claims. So if 4 or 5 people got hurt somehow, that policy would max out at $2 million. We have limits available all the way up to $3 million for any single claim or $5 million in the combined. So there's a lot of iterations in between there. I would say probably 70% of venues require that 1 million, 2 million. But again, that's something to talk to the agent that handles your business owner's policy to figure that out. Another thing that we always include at no charge is host liquor liability. That's going to extend coverage to claims of injury or property damage if they're alcohol related. And something really important about that is we even want people to have that on the policy, even if it's like a dry event, because if somebody shows up intoxicated or brings alcohol without the knowledge of the host, they still want there to be protection. So that's a super important thing that you always want to have on there because you don't want a claim to be denied because it was alcohol related.
Okay, since you brought up liquor insurance, liquor liability, we're going to jump right into that because I do have some questions because I know myself as being a venue owner, I do not serve liquor. So I require my guests to get liquor liability insurance. So if a venue owner allows alcohol at an event, but doesn't provide the bar services, should they have liquor liability insurance? Why or why not?
Yes, so I mean, should the venue itself have liquor liability insurance or the event host?
So say for instance, if you're a venue like myself, I have a venue, but we do not sell liquor. So I don't carry the insurance for the liquor for to serve alcohol.
Gotcha.
I require my clients to have the insurance.
Mhm.
So is that something that you cover? And can you give us a little more in-depth detail about the liquor liability insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you would always want the clients to have it. The host liquor liability, kind of to dive into it a little bit, that's going to be appropriate in the cases where it's a self-service situation, it's a BYOB situation, or if a third party like a caterer or a bartender is hired for the service of the event. In the case that you do have a caterer or a bartender, you want to make sure that they have something else called retail liquor liability. And that basically gives them coverage if they're in the business of selling, serving, or manufacturing alcohol. That's something we also offer. So if you have a caterer that maybe doesn't have that service, or maybe you have a bartender that does something 2 or 3 times a year and doesn't have the insurance, they can buy that retail liquor liability on a per day basis from us as well.
I always advise my clients when they come to our venue and they're serving liquor, and even if the caterer is the server, has the bartender, I always still ask them to get some like liquor liability insurance because I know we've had an incident before where the caterer's bartender put glass in a trash bag and one of the clients was pick the trash up and cut themselves. So you're if in case that way that they have coverage, they're not going back and try to sue both the caterer and the host of the event. Would you say that is something that you would advise your clients to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And by having a another third party in charge of the service, it further insulates the venue. So you have the event host, if they go after the event host and they were not found to be responsible for the injury, then they have another vendor to potentially pursue as well. So it's not just either the host or the venue. Once you have a vendor in between that host is hired, you're just further insulating yourself as the venue and protecting yourself.
Are there certain types of events that like concerts, large parties, corporate events that require additional or specialized insurance?
So some venues do have different requirements based on the type of event. Like a lot of like municipalities or park and recreation districts, they might be like, okay, a birthday party with no alcohol and less than 100 people, we're only going to require the 1 million and 2 million. But if it's a ticketed event or over X number of guests, we want to make sure that they have additional coverage. So something like that to suggest what you should require wouldn't really be my place to say, but it is very common for there to be different kind of qualifiers as to what level of coverage a client's required to have based on their event details.
Can you speak to how venue owners can protect themselves legally with having insurance? Because a lot of them think that, there's some people that operate under the radar, think, okay, I can just get insurance when I have an event. So, what do you think is the proper legalities they need to have event coverage at all times?
Yeah, I mean, really, you should never let anybody set foot onto your property if they don't have insurance. I mean, and that goes for both the event host that's renting your space as well as the vendors, because a vendor could cause property damage or an injury just as easily as an event host can. A caterer could be carrying a hot dish of food and trip and fall and spill it on a guest and hurt them. So yeah, no matter what, just making sure that anybody that's hired to operate at your venue or the event host always has insurance is one of the best things you can do for yourself, as well as making sure that you have proper coverage for yourself. Because a lot of venues, kind of going back to the example that we spoke about before, they'll think, oh, it's okay because the event host has insurance, everything will be covered. Well, if the host or the venue doesn't have insurance and they're responsible for that falling through the deck situation, rotted out, plank of wood, they're the ones that's responsible. So whoever's pursuing them for that injury, they're going to come after their home, the venue, any personal assets. So just making sure that the venue has insurance as well is huge.
Right. So, what steps should a venue owner take to proactively reduce their liabilities and liability risk and prevent costly claims or lawsuits?
Totally. Yeah. Your business owner's agent will do a walkthrough on your property with you to see the potential liabilities that are out there. But I mean, just thinking about people that are out there and things that are improperly maintained potentially, like a root that's coming up under a sidewalk and there's a crack in your sidewalk, again, with like the floorboard situation, just really assessing your property from sort of an objective standpoint and looking and being like, okay, where could somebody get hurt here and what could be my fault, just really being aware of that and looking at that closely.
Okay. So, what should venue owners do or clients do immediately after an incident occurs on on the property to ensure proper documentation and claims processing?
Yeah, totally. So reach out to us immediately if we're the ones that the policy's through. But yeah, you want to photograph everything, potentially get statements from people that saw what happened, take video footage, I mean, just be as thorough as you possibly can if something happens. And then basically what happens is you would contact us if it was our policy. We would gather some basic information like what happened, when did it happen, who saw it, what was the policy, that kind of stuff. Submit that to our carriers, and then they assign an adjuster to get that other information, the photographs, statements, videos, whatever else there may be.
So we're going to move on to cancellation insurance and event postponement because, during COVID, a lot of people lost money because venues closed down, their events was canceled. So how does wedding cancellation insurance benefit both the venue's owners and the couples booking the space?
Yeah, this one is huge, and it's important to realize that it is a benefit to the venue as well. So if you've collected, say, 50% of the booking fee, you've collected $5,000 of $10,000 that's owed so far, and they cancel the event 2 weeks out. Well, you're most likely in your contract, you're stating that you can't return any refunds. You're probably not going to rebook the space within that 2 week window. And you're not going to get back your money because now you're not able to rebook. You can't make any money. You've lost a weekend. Maybe it's a prime weekend during the spring or summer or fall. So the event host files a claim against the cancellation policy. They'll be given back the $5,000 that they paid out to you already. And if they're contractually obligated to pay you another $5,000 to complete the $10,000 booking, the cancellation policy will actually also cover contractual obligations. So it'll pay the host the money that they're contractually owed to pay you in addition to what they've already paid you.
Okay. So, what are the common situations where wedding cancellation insurance would cover a postponed or canceled event? Say, for instance, like once again during COVID, and a lot of people thought because they had the force majeure clause in their contract that they didn't have to pay the clients or refund the clients. So, how does that insurance cover the clients in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, some of the most common ones that we see will be like large weather events, like hurricanes coming through in Florida. They're obviously not going to have their wedding during a hurricane. So, but yeah, like weather events are a big one. Uh, Unforeseen sickness or injury to the bride or groom or key members of the event, like the, father of the bride, mother of the groom, whoever it may be. Withdrawal of a military leave request would be another one. There's also another thing that's a little bit in the weeds, but like if there's an inability of like more than half of the guests to make it to the wedding, then that could also be cause for cancellation coverage, which means like they're having the wedding in New York, but they're all from Florida. So all the families flying up to New York for the wedding. Hurricane rolls into Florida, nobody can fly out and make it to the wedding. The cancellation coverage would also jump in there to cover that.
So, say for instance, a couple comes to you for liquor liability insurance. Do you also make them aware of, the cancellation insurances for their events, just just for, educating them or letting them know that, if it's intimate, I mean, bad weather or something that they can be covered through this insurance? Are you educating those clients?
Yeah, totally. So we only offer the cancellation coverage for weddings. And we only offer it, I believe, 10 days out from the event date. So as long as they pick wedding and it's beyond 10 days from the event date when they're going through the application, our application automatically will pop up another step, introducing them to cancellation insurance, explaining what it is, asking if they want to include that as well.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about financial and legal considerations. What are some of the common claims you've seen from event venues, and how could they have prevented them?
Yeah, common claims. a lot of, on the property damage side, a lot of scraped up floors, or like maybe a DJ taped down some wires and they pulled the tape up and it ripped up the finish off the floor. Uh, some property or some injury claims would be like a trip and fall on the dance floor is super common. And there is another limit within the policy too, which a lot of venues are not usually aware of what it means. There's a $5,000 and it says MedPay or MedEXP, but that's going to be $5,000 for medical expenses regardless of who was at fault. So somebody slips and falls on the dance floor, turns their ankle, they go to urgent care and it's a $1,500 bill or something like that. That medical expenses limit is a amount set aside by the carrier to pay for smaller claims like that, regardless of who was at fault. The majority of our injury claims fall into that medical expense limit. And a lot of venues just aren't aware that that's like an amount just set aside to protect everybody involved and kind of get it to go away for a small amount. Larger injury claims, like we had somebody, fall and, break their neck and become paralyzed, like those kind of things fall under the occurrence limit, which is up to $1 million or $2 or $3 million, depending on what they purchase. But yeah, that medical expense is a huge one that I really want venues to be aware of.
Okay. So, what advice do you have for new venue owners on balancing affordability with adequate insurance coverage? And are there any cost-effective ways to ensure full protection?
Yeah, so a lot of times, like when a venue tells the client they have to get insurance and they see that they need to get $1 million in coverage, it's like red flag, $1 million in coverage, that's going to cost a ridiculous amount. Our policies are very reasonable. I mean, for a wedding with 40 people, that's going to start at around $66 for $1 million in coverage. The vast majority of our events fall in the $105 to $126 range. So considering the cost of a wedding and how much they're already spending on that, I mean, typically $120 isn't going to be a huge burden for them or something they're really going to fight you on, or hopefully not, The one issue we do see is when a venue says, okay, well, I also book my event space for smaller events. I only charge $250 for this 2-hour birthday party. I can't possibly justify them getting insurance that costs half as much as a venue rental, I understand that. We understand that. But also, somebody could just as easily get injured in a 2-hour birthday party or cause significant damage to your venue. They have a 2-hour birthday party and they leave the plug of an ice chest open and it drains and warps all your floors. That could have just as easily happened at a 2-hour event as it could have at a, full day wedding. So yeah, we try to keep it as affordable as possible and just make sure you understand how important it is, even when the risk doesn't seem as high.
Okay, so I know when I first came across the event helper, I thought, okay, I could come to you guys for general liability, but I still need to have a separate coverage and advise my clients to come to you guys for event insurance. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's all we provide, and that's all we've done for the last 15 years is the event insurance side of it for the person renting the space or vendors operating on the property.
Okay. So, is there anything else that you like to add to this discussion?
Yeah, if people are interested in directing their clients to us or having them use us, we do have a partner program in place where we basically create a link to our application that's unique to your venue. You give that link to clients to purchase a policy, and it's automatically going to populate the certificate of insurance to meet your requirements. So a lot of venues have a tough time with getting the correct additional insured wording on the policy or getting a certain coverage that they require listed. We can make sure that that's done correctly every time for you and really help simplify the process for both you and your clients. But yeah, I love talking to venues about this kind of stuff. So That's all I do. So if you guys have any questions or want to talk, please just call me or email me. I'm happy to go through anything and everything with you.
Right. And how can they contact you?
Yeah, you can email me at Myles, Myles, at eventhelper.com, or you can call my direct line, which is 530-500-2003.
Okay, and guys, we'll also have Miles' information down in the description box. So you'll have all his information. So if you need to contact him, refer your clients out, the information will be provided. So, Miles, we'd like to thank you. And wow, this was such an insightful conversation. And we will certainly put your information down there so clients can contact you. So, what I like to say, if you found this interview helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up. And if you have already, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We look forward to seeing you in the next video, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.